Alright, so today we are talking about inverse linear functions. An inverse relation is the set of ordered pairs obtained by switching the x and y coordinates of each ordered pair in the relation. An inverse in general is basically you need to think of flip the x and y. Okay, so for example, if 5, 3 is in the relation, then 3, 5 would be in the inverse. So the first example, find the inverse of the relation. So the way we write inverse is like r negative 1. Okay, and then the inverse, the first one, we're going to switch our x and our y, so it'll be 8, negative 6. Then 11, negative 15. 3, 9. And lastly, 6, 0. Okay, so essentially all we're doing is flipping the x and the y. Alright, so another example where we're going to find the inverse of this relation. In this case we have a line. So something to look at here is, let's look at these points that we know. Like this point here is 0, 2. This point is 1, 0. So if we look at the inverse of that, if we flip-flop this, my inverse of this point would then be, of this point here would be 0, 1. And then my inverse of 0, 2 would then be 2, 0. So essentially all we did was flip-flop our points, and then we're going to draw our line straight through. Okay, so essentially when you do a graph of a linear, or of a line on a graph, and find the inverse, essentially all you need to do is find a couple points that are on that line, flip them, and then plot them, and then draw your inverse. So just review, the black is our original function, okay, or relation. The blue is our inverse. Alright, one more example from this section is finding the inverse of a given linear function. So given the function f of x equals 4x minus 12, another way that we can write this is y equals 4x minus 12, and we get the same thing. Okay, it's the same line, same equation, and such. So from here, just like in the previous ones, we are going to flip the x and the y. So now we're going to have x equals 4y minus 12. Okay. Now we want to get the inverse. So we don't want the function in terms of y, we want it in terms of x. So we're going to solve back to get y by itself. So when I do that, first step, I'm going to add my 12 over. I can't combine my x and my 12, so it's just x plus 12 equals 4y. Next step, I'm going to divide by 4. Okay, I'm going to cancel that out, but if I divide one thing by 4, I need to divide the whole thing by 4. So my answer I have is y equals x over 4 plus 3. I'm not going to leave it that way. I want to write it as the inverse, so I'm going to change my y to f inverse of x, and that f inverse of x is going to equal x over 4 plus 3. And that'll be my answer. I know this was a short overview of the section, but if you have any questions, make sure you stop in and let me know. Thanks.